Hey, it's Ben here from the Strength Factory, and I've got arm pump. Okay, so I may have told a little white lie there. I don't have arm pump, only rode from around the corner, but I have had it in the past, and I've had hand pain, and you probably have too. And there's a million things out there about arm pump, and it's not very straightforward. There's not just one simple answer, and it even gets to the extreme where people have arm pump surgery, and that tells you just how tricky it can be to deal with. Having said that, this is going to be a long video. This is going to be everything that I know about arm pump, everything I've tried, everything that's worked, and some things that I think are definitely worth a shot if arm pump is spoiling your riding. Let's start off by explaining then, what is arm pump? So in the jargon, it's basically a form of compartment syndrome, okay? But it's induced by intense physical activity. So what does that actually mean? Well, basically your forearm, like the rest of your body, is divided into compartments. Within those compartments, there's blood vessels and nerves and all different stuff going on. But the main thing that we're interested in is bundles of muscle tissue, muscle fibers, okay? Now, as you know, when a muscle contracts, when it's doing work, it requires blood, okay? Blood to carry oxygen and energy to it for it to do that work. Now, what happens is that as the forearm does work, riding your bike, okay, gripping on for dear life, is that the muscle starts to swell. Just like if you get like a nice pump at the gym, it's a good feeling in general, except when it happens here on your bike. Now, these compartments of muscle, they're housed in sheaths of something called fascia. Fascia is like a non-elastic covering, basically. Think of like a skin on a sausage you might have for breakfast, except this isn't going to stretch. Now, as we do work, the muscle starts to swell. As we do more work, it continues, and the muscle becomes tighter within that fascia, within that compartment. And blood obviously has to get into the muscle, but it also has to get out, and this is where the issue is. See, my heart is pumping the oxygenated blood with lots of pressure through arteries into the area. However, the blood returning back out through the veins has less pressure behind it, and now this is all getting jacked up. The blood can no longer escape the forearm, and we've just got this traffic jam that causes a reduced blood supply to the forearm, and the forearm and hand then become weak. That is essentially arm pump. In this video, it's my aim to leave no stone unturned, at least in terms of what I know. There might be other stuff out there, but this is everything that I know and that I've used in the last 7 or 8 years. So we're going to cover a lot of things. We're going to cover the components on your bike and the way it's set up. We're going to look at your body position, which is probably one of the keys. We're going to look at training and recovery and a few other bits and bobs thrown in there as well. So grab yourself a cup of tea and let's get started. Now we're going to take a look at the components that actually go on your bike and how you can select those carefully to try and minimize the likelihood of arm pump and minimize how severe it is. So starting with where the rubber meets the dirt, tires. Okay, now it's my preference anyway. I never want to have another puncture. I just run heavy tires. But a great side effect, for instance, of running these Michelin DH22s is that's a full-on DH tire, and in the winter I'm running sub 20 psi, and I've got loads of grip in all conditions, but it's really damp. So straight away you're getting more damping from the bike, less vibrations, less work in the hand. In the past as well, I've run tyre inserts, and I think they have a similar effect as well. You can drop the tyre pressure even lower, and potentially that's going to reduce the fatigue on your hands and forearms. So working our way up, it's pretty simple. Just make sure your forks are set up properly and make sure they're serviced, okay? I'm not going to go into the details of fork setup. There's a million videos that do a better job than I will. Now this is where it gets interesting though. And I just want to clarify here that the products I'm going to talk about now, including the tyre, are all things that I've either bought with my own money or that I've independently tested when I was working for Wide Open Mag, okay? So I've got no affiliation with any of them. And the first one I'll show you here are these one-up components carbon bars, and they've got this kind of flat section here that's designed to be compliant. And so there's actually
a little bit of flex in the bar, and I'll be honest, it makes a noticeable difference. And I am a big believer in this product, and at over 120 quid it needs to be good, but in my opinion, they do what they're supposed to, and they do reduce vibrations and fatigue out on the trail. The longer and rougher it is, the more benefit you're going to get. Simple as that. Now, there's another product that I reviewed, which I don't actually have, had to send it back, but it's called the Flex Handlebar from Fast Company. And if there's ever a product guaranteed to make the comment section go mental, that is the one, because it's really expensive and basically it's got elastomers in it, and you've basically got suspension in your bars. Again, though, haters gonna hate, but it really, really works. It is, for some people, it's a game changer. So even if you don't actually want to spend lots of money on, you know, a higher end bar like these ones or something, it's worth looking into reviews, especially with the 35mm clamp diameter bars these days. I've tested some that are horribly stiff, and I don't suffer from arm pump and hand fatigue, but immediately you could feel the negative difference on the ride. Okay, stiffer is not always better. So just have a look at that when you're choosing your components. And the next component, this is probably as important as it gets, because this is where your hand meets the bike, is the grips. Okay, now the first thing to think about is diameter, i.e. bigger hands, bigger diameter, as a general rule. So make sure they're fitting your hands correctly. And then we can think about different styles of grip and different compounds. So for instance, what I've got fitted here, this is actually a Renthal super tacky grip. So it's really sticky, it's really soft, but interestingly, there's no lock on here. This is a slide on, like old school style grip that I've glued on. And because of that, there's no plastic sheath inside the grip. Okay, and that means for the diameter that you get maximum cushioning and sponginess, because it's rubber all the way down to the handlebar. Whereas with a conventional grip where you've got a clamping collar, there's a nylon plastic sheath inside, which is obviously hard, and that reduces the amount of rubber that's actually on the bar and cushioning you. And I bought these with my own money. I'm a big fan. I'm going to be getting another set and putting them on my other bike. They're just super grippy, very comfortable, and take a lot of buzz out of the trail. Another option that you should consider for grips, a lot more expensive but really effective in my experience, is this product here called Rev Grips. Basically there's some elastomers on the grip, and they give the grip a little twisting fore-aft movement that you can tune with different elastomers in the Pro model. Now, they are controversial. The comment section hates them because they've never ridden them. But for me, I felt a massive improvement in back-to-back big days at like rough, blown out bike parks, and my level of hand fatigue and pain in my knuckles and joints was greatly reduced. So they're certainly worth looking into if arm pump is spoiling your riding. So to summarize then, what we've got is consider some heavier, more damped tyres, get your suspension serviced and set up, and then avoid overly stiff bars. Consider a bar that's designed to be compliant, or even a flex bar if you've really got a problem and you want to spend the money. And then think about where your hands meet the bar. Look for the right diameter and try and get it as cushioned as possible. So again, we're removing as many vibrations as possible. We're making life as easy as we can for your hands. It's been talked about many times before, but got to mention it anyway. Just have a think about your cockpit setup, okay? Bar width, okay? Not too wide, not too narrow. There's plenty of stuff out there to help you figure that out. But in particular, your brake lever position. Now, look, there are people who ride them at the extremes, who are very flat or very flipped down, okay? But for the most of us, you're looking for somewhere in the middle. And having tested lots and set up loads of bikes in a really short period of time, my simple approach for a starting point is saddle down, stand up, arms straight, and basically right there, I've got an angle that seems to work for me really nicely. It's pretty neutral, no one comments on it that it's flat or steep, and then, you know, I can really get into my riding position there. Second one to consider is the reach on the lever as well. Okay, so they're both the same, and yeah, that it suits the size of your hands, the length of your fingers. Most modern levers are adjustable, so have a play around. It's time to talk about training in terms of arm pump.
And the first place that your mind is obviously going to go is forearm and specific grip training. And whilst yes, that's obviously going to get your hands, your grip stronger, what I'd say is this, is that if you're doing a well-rounded strength program, i.e. you're doing exercise with dumbbells, with barbells, or pulling your body weight, pull-ups and horizontal rows and things like that, then actually a well-rounded program a couple of times a week is going to address pretty much all of your grip needs. You know, if you're doing pull-ups, bent over row, things like that, you know, dumbbells, kettlebells, that is going to tick off pretty much all the grip training you need, and you're probably going to be strong enough for most mountain biking and motocross. Now, if maybe you do like a desk job, so you're not doing a manual job, and you're not currently doing any strength training, then there's a good chance that your grip could do with being stronger, okay? And so what am I going to say? I'm going to say, start doing some body weight or some like gym-based strength training, okay? Literally doing body weight rows, pull-ups, and things like, you know, Romanian deadlift, where you've got to hold onto that bar or the weights for a while, is going to get your grip plenty strong enough. Obviously, there's additional things we can do as part of that program. If grip's a real issue, we can do farmers walks and suitcase carry, hangs on the bar, like hanging knee raises and things like that, and they all add to it. But the bottom line is that your average strength trainer program is going to cover all of your grip needs.
Now, we can also look, you know, beyond the actual forearm and think a bit more about the fingers. And this isn't something that I get everyone doing, but it's definitely something that I go to and that I've tried with people when forearm is an issue for them. So for instance here, if you're going to do a row on the TRX, you would normally hold it here, full hand. But let's think about improving the finger strength, in particular those first fingers for like your brake, and maybe if you middle finger clutch on a motocross bike, you know, you can actually do the rows in a more open hand position like this. So we strengthen the fingers specifically rather than just the whole hand and forearm, okay? So you could try throwing in a few sets of finger strengthening on that. Same in pull-ups, we can obviously hold the bar, you know, pull up or chin up, or we can grip onto it like that. The other obvious option is to go rock climbing or bouldering. Now, my main thing I would say there is that if you've not done it before and you already suffer from arm pump on the bike, is that if you just go for it, then you're going to be in the climbing wall about 20 minutes max, and your forearm's going to be massive. You're going to be like this, you're not going to be able to climb, and you probably won't get much from it. What I would say is, if you are going to use climbing to strengthen your forearms, then stop climbing before you get a massive pump on. So you start to feel a pump, stop, drop off the wall if it's safe, relax, let your arms go down, and then keep doing that. So you're nudging up to the point of getting a big pump and then coming back. Once you've got that massive pump, that's basically the end of any decent climbing you're going to do. And if you're not used to it, it's going to take days to recover from. And during those days, your riding is going to suffer. The other things that we like to do in the gym, the cardio things like the rower or the skier and things like that. And actually, for a lot of people, the rower in particular, you know, what goes first isn't the legs or the lungs, it's the forearms and the grip, okay? So, you know, both of those machines, but in particular rower, give you a really good opportunity to improve your strength, endurance in the forearm and in the grip. Now, what I would say here though, is that as much as it's tempting to always have the fan up on level 10 to make it as hard as possible, is that I would use the drag factor, and I'd probably, well, I do most of my rowing with my clients at about a drag factor of 130, okay? And that way we can focus on working the whole body and not just blowing up the forearms. The thing to look out for here as well is when you're doing this training, whether it's a hard row, no matter which drag factor you use, or whether it's a heavy session in the gym, you know, if you're going to do a lot of work that's going to really strain your forearms today, then you're going to have to work really hard to recover to ride well without arm pump tomorrow. So you can also look at your strength training in terms of the year and also the week. So for instance, in the winter months, maybe you're not riding long, rough tracks and that sort of thing. An arm pump is probably less of an issue in the winter. So in the winter, do the bulk of your strength work, you know? And if you're riding with slightly fatigued forearms, it's probably all right. As you get to the summer, now the party laps begin. We're hitting the bike parks, you're doing long laps and the trails are baked hard, there's braking bumps everywhere. Now we've got to think, actually, if I've done the work in the winter, I can back off that really intense work on the forearms in the gym in the summer and let the riding do the work for me. So you could change your program, or you could use things like lifting straps and things like that to take the load off your arm. Thinking about timing as well, certainly what I would do is when I'm programming in season, in the summer, thinking about racers, is we're going to do the more demanding sort of forearm and arm work at the start of the week. And that way, by the time it comes to race on the weekend, you should be really well recovered.
Right then, body position on the bike. First thing I'll say is, for a more in-depth look at this, I've got a really good video all about this. Anyway, the key here is that I want to sit in a nice hinged position at the hips, where basically my legs and my hips are doing the work and not my upper body and forearms. So this is the sort of position that we want to be riding in. Okay, I like to call it the flow position because of how I like to think about the trail rather than attack, but you know what I mean. So what I've got here is a pretty straight leg, a hinge, so there's tension through the hamstring, through the glute, and I'm holding my nice flat back position. And here, actually, you know, my hand can be pretty relaxed. Obviously that changes with different terrain, but as I move through the terrain, my legs are holding the majority of my body weight, okay? And then it's just a case of moving back and forwards. And that way, straight away, I'm nice and relaxed on the upper body and I'm not doing unnecessary work with my forearms. Now, that is the opposite of what we see a lot of people doing, especially the beginner riders, where they're squatted down more and they're a little scared of being on the front, and so their weight is back. And now the whole time, I'm basically like hanging off the back of the bike and I'm working the hand and the forearm way harder than I need to be. And you've got no weight on the front, so we know that's no good. So that's the first thing I'd say really. If you're a beginner to intermediate, then really have a good look and you're suffering arm pump, then have a good look at your riding position. Film it, ask a mate, get some coaching, okay? If you're a pretty decent rider and happy with your position, then chances are this is not going to help. The eagle-eyed amongst you will also have noticed I'm riding the e-bike today, okay? And that's not by accident, okay? An e-bike, haters gonna hate, but is an awesome tool for improving your tolerance to doing lots of descending in a given amount of time. And that is often the issue, is you go on holiday or you go to a bike park and you're doing longer descents and more frequent descents than you're accustomed to at your local trails, okay? You live on a 1 minute hill and normally do 5 laps an hour, and then you go to a bike park where they're 4 minute tracks and you're doing 8 runs or whatever. That's when you're going to get arm pump. And an e-bike is a great way to get a good volume of training into your hands and into your forearms in preparation for a trip, or just to build up your tolerance, okay? So if I could normally do 3 laps of this in an hour, and now I can do 6 or 7 or maybe 8 if I'm all on boost, then that's, you know, more descending in that time and with less rest in between each one. Well, guess what? I'm conditioning my hands and my body to take a bit more of a battering, okay, and conditioning them to not get arm pump. We all know it wouldn't be one of my videos without me talking about aerobic fitness. Ah, happy days. So it's a simple one really, and the bottom line is that when you improve your aerobic fitness, your ability to move blood around your body also improves. That is basically the heart of aerobic fitness, and that includes your forearms. So the more aerobically fit I am, then the more able I am to move oxygenated blood in and the deoxygenated blood out of the tissues in my muscles, including my forearms. So if you're hanging out after 3 laps, get aerobically fit. Simple as that. You've got to build up gradually. Don't let yourself go too deep into the arm pump zone, okay? When you start getting pumped up, pull off the trail, shake it out, maybe rub your arms a bit, just help get that blood out of them. Take some relaxing breaths and then go again. Once you've gone really deep into arm pump and you've got the full claw hand as well, it's really hard to come back from. It's just going to happen sooner and sooner on every track that you ride. So to build up your tolerance, preferably before a trip, just stop short. It starts to build, stop, relieve it, go again. Stop, relieve it, go again. I know it's a pain in the arse, but do you want arm pump? Neither do I. This one may seem a little bit random at first, but if you look closely at footage of the Enduro Series and even the odd World Cup, you're going to see the best riders in the world taking little micro breaks and sitting down for a second or three during race runs. This season at the EWS, I saw Richie Rude do it, Jack Moyer do it. It's all on the main coverage, and we saw Loic Bruni doing it, flicking the little knob on his forks. But the bottom line is that whether you're resting your legs or your hands, it doesn't matter. You're resting your body, and you're definitely going to be taking pressure off. So in between gnarly sections of trail, you can sit down, take a breath, relax, and it's only a second or two. If you can do that a couple of times in a long trail, it might be the difference between getting arm pump and not. So if it's safe, give it a try.
This next one is, I guess it's a bit of a long shot really. I can't find any actual evidence of it specifically working for arm pump, but if you're always crippled by arm pump, then it's got to be worth a try. So you've all heard of, like beetroot juice and things like that, that are going to give you dietary nitrates, okay? They're going to increase the levels of nitric oxide in the blood, and what that does is it's a vasodilator, which means it makes your blood vessels, like your veins and arteries, bigger. More blood, happy days. So generally people take it to improve their aerobic performance and things like that. However, if you've been crippled by arm pump, then in my opinion, it's worth a try. I've read quite a few anecdotal things, but nothing scientific basically, but it's certainly worth a try. If we can take a product like a beetroot product, or just eat more foods that are high in nitrates that improves your circulation, then surely you're giving yourself the best chance of reducing arm pump that's possible.
The next thing to talk about is recovery, like in between practice runs or race runs, whether it's downhill or enduro. Let's say you get a bit pumped up on a stage or a practice down a downhill track, and you've got to ride again in half an hour, whatever it is. So now the priority is to get the hands and those forearms back so you can race at 100%. So the first thing is, if you're back in the pits and things like that, that's when you've got the best opportunity. You might be able to ice it or get it in some cold water or something like that. And then once you've done that, we can just start flushing out the arm with some gentle massage, okay? Either do it to yourself or get someone to do it for you. And that way we can get the old blood out of there because it's all backed up. And then once it's out, we can just start some gentle movement and then just get the blood pumping back in and return that normal sensation to the arm. If you're not going back to the pits, if it's enduro and you're up on the hill, you've just got to stay relaxed on the bike. Maybe do a little stretch on the bars on each side. While you're pedaling up, you might be able to just gently work your arms. We just want to get that old blood out of them before the next stage, okay? Easier said than done. At the end of a long day of riding or racing, or even before a long day of riding and racing, we want to get the hands and forearms in the best possible condition for the next day. And so one of the best ways to do that is get hands on, get a massage off a teammate, off a friend, off your girlfriend, boyfriend, non-binary friend, or do it yourself, okay? Get a little lotion on there, light some candles, you're gonna like it. But seriously, work your way from the wrist upwards, because that's where we wanna flush out, and just work it through. It doesn't have to be complicated, okay? Just run the thumbs up, trying to get some blood flow, some circulation, and free it up. If you find any real knotty bits or anything, then you can just try getting your thumb in there and then move it around, just try and move it, and just, if we can improve the general tissue quality of the forearm, then that's only going to help. The other thing that lots of you may have is the old massage gun as well. Just work it along, again, working from the wrist up towards the forearm, because that's where we want to work. And yeah, it should feel good, not like punishment. There you have it then. I'm fairly sure that's everything that I know about arm pump, and I really hope that something in there is going to help you, because the bottom line is that people go to the extremes of having surgery for arm pump, and that should tell you that solving it isn't a straightforward thing, and that for some people it's always going to be an issue. And so the more trouble you have with arm pump, the more effort and the more different things you should try, which is why I've tried to give you so many options, from the grips, the bars, what you eat, how you train, all of that. If arm pump's ruining your riding, then leave no stone unturned. For the rest of you who just get arm pump when you go on holiday once a year to the mountains, my main piece of advice is just get a load of bike park laps in, get some uplift days, ride longer, rougher trails before you go on that trip, so that you acclimatise, you prepare your body for it. So I would love to hear what you think. What have I missed out? Or what have I said that you think is total nonsense? Okay, make sure to leave it in the comments. And look, you know, I really hope that if you do have arm pump, that something here helps you and that you can enjoy your riding even more.